What is up, guys? Jake here with the next Vainglory video, and I am back with another hero build video. And this one's going to be, as you can see, on Blackfeather. Now, I have been playing Blackfeather a little bit lately and really starting to like him. When it first came out, it was kind of like, didn't really like him. I don't know if it was the last update or what, but I like the way he's playing right now, and I enjoy playing him in the jungle. You guys know I'm not a big lane guy. I've been practicing it some, trying to get better at it, but again, I enjoy the jungle better, so I tend to enjoy playing Blackfeather in the jungle better. Now, he can obviously be played in the lane. He's very adept at that, but for me, jungle is where it's at. So I will be speaking mostly from that. And again, guys, I'm not an expert. I'm not a pro player here. I'm telling you what works for me on Blackfeather. You might come in and say, hey, this is not the best build for him, whatever. It works for me. So there's really two builds that I like to do with Blackfeather, and both of them are weapon power, but it totally depends on the enemy team. And again, I'm speaking from the jungle here. If you're going into the lane, totally different build probably is what you're going to be looking for. But if you're going into the jungle and you get teamed up against, like, let's say a very tank heavy team, maybe like a Catherine Cruel in the jungle, and you're facing them, or a Finn and maybe now a Rhyme or something like that. Heroes that take a beating really, really well. Then I like to go with an early breaking point. When I say early, I mean like right out of the gates, breaking point. That's what I get. But before we even get to that, let's talk about the abilities, and I always do this. If you want to go if you're in the lane, you probably want to max out your B ability, but again, I don't like playing him in the lane, so I always max out my A and C. Unlock your B, it does give you a little shield and all that, but I max out A and C. That's how I like to play him. But back to when I buy. When I start off, obviously I'm buying, no matter what, I'm buying a weapon blade for the most part, and then some pots and getting into that. But if I'm going, again, against that tank-heavy team, and think about it when you start. If you're going against a Koshka, Adagio, breaking point's probably not what you want. Those fights aren't going to last long enough for you to get your stacks up and get them taken down. So we'll talk about what I do on that situation in a moment. But if I'm going for that breaking point, obviously, I won't buy the, obviously won't buy the weapon blade. I'll start with a swift shooter if I'm going breaking point. Get that attack speed up, clear those minions a little bit quicker, and move on. Often I'll even go ahead and get the blazing salvo before I grab the minion's foot and the lucky strike. And then go into that breaking point. So once I get that, it's all about defense for me. Again, always counter build. Depends on if you're going against in the jungle, if you're going against a CP or a weapon power hero. If you need some armor, grab some armor. If not, I love to go fountain early game. You guys know that. Try to rush up that fountain, especially if you're going CP. If not, I sometimes will still go fountain, but grab that coat of plates. If I'm going weapon power guy, I'll get my light armor first. Let me just go ahead and sell this out of the way. I'll grab my light armor, then I'll start building into my fountain. Hopefully finish it out, but if I have to grab that coat of plates, I will, and then grab that. Again, it's all about getting tanky, getting heavy, because if you can get that breaking point and then you get into that fight with a Cruel and you start building those breaking point stacks, up, you can burst him down a lot like he can you. And if you've got, maybe an Arden or somebody giving you a Vanguard in there, you can, if you time it right, you can, use your ultimate and sort of sneak past some of his abilities, and I think you can win that fight. But it's just about counter building your enemy. Obviously, if you're going against a Cruel, you go ahead and grab that Atlas, and that combined with what you have here as far as a breaking point, I think you probably win that fight if you have any help whatsoever from your team. From there, I will go. Obviously you got your boots in there. You want to have that at some point. From there, it just depends on. You might even go with some more defense as far as maybe an Aegis if you're going like a full Crystal Power team, or a Crucible if you're going against an Arden, or something like that. Just get tanky to where you're really surviving in those fights. And then at the very end, if you want to top it off with something, I would recommend just going Sorrow Blade. Start building just weapon power, get built up to it. Get your if you only have one spot, grab your heavy steel, save up. Grab that Sorrow Blade, and that's going to top you off. And that really seems, especially late game, he can just absolutely devastate real tank-heavy opponents because you're living through. You've got the fountain, you've got the breaking point. You're building those stacks up, and by the time it gets, you get 10, 12 stacks on that breaking point, you are just deleting people with that A ability, and then it's just over. So that's the first build that I do with it. Again, remember, look at your enemy, look at what they are, what you're likely to go into, how long you think the fights are going to last, and base it off of that. Now, if you are going against, again, a squishier team, maybe you've got an Adagio, a Ringo, a Vox, something like that, and these fights are going to be fast and furious. You're not going to be building up breaking point stacks. Don't do that. I see so many people that they've got their quote build and they just build it. Whatever, it doesn't matter who they're playing against, what's going on. They build their build, and that's that. You gotta look at the team comps. You gotta look at what they're building. You gotta counter build. Everything's in this game is about counter building. So if that happens, I'll start with the weapon blade, and I'm going straight sorrow blade first. Obviously, you're going to get some boots in there. Most of the time, I will grab a tier 1 defense. If I'm going against a crystal power, I'll grab a shield. If I'm going against a weapon power, I'll grab an armor, whatever. Just something to give me a little survivability in case we run into them. But oftentimes, depending on who the other enemy team is, I'm avoiding fights at the start. I'm actually going to upload a match that I did with Blackfeather tonight, tomorrow probably for you guys. To show what I'm talking about. I was avoiding fights left and right early. They were running together. They were whipping us. I was trying my best to stay away from it. Some of my teammates that I was in solo queue weren't. But again, that little bit of armor sometimes or crystal power, a little bit of shield can help you get through it. From there, again, just build your, grab your items, get your tier 2s, get your sorrow blade, and you're in good shape. Now, again, from here, I like to grab some defense. Even if I'm going some shield, I pretty much will always go for that fountain. If I need to, I'll grab that coat of plates, if it's a weapon power that I'm facing a lot of. But get that fountain done, grab it, and then from here, you're ready to go. Obviously, at some point, you're going to want to upgrade your boots. Here, you're ready to go for more damage. And again, think about the fights you're doing. Think about what you're after. Burst damage, you're going quick, fast and furious fights. I like to go with a monocle on Blackfeather. It really, really helps out. You got a minion foot, a blade. If you only have one option here, by the way, is to say you don't have room for another, you can't do both lines, I would go Lucky Strike, go with the minion's foot. You've already got some, quite a bit of weapon damage. You don't really need that much more. So if you can, obviously go both directions here. But if you can't, grab that Lucky Strike, get a little bit of that crit chance, and get that monocle. When you get to this point, you are a monster. Your late game, you're level 12. You've got a sorrow blade, a monocle, a fountain, and some armor. You are absolutely a terror just running through this game. Probably, if you get much more past that, I mean, wide open, whatever you want to do. You could go a breaking point. You could go a tornado trigger. I mean, you get, attack speed's good on him. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to back up. That's one thing I didn't say. If you're going this build, I do get attack speed. I will end up with a blazing salvo at this point. So that sort of, brings down. You want to get that early, by the way. I'm sorry. I should have said that earlier on. You want to get attack speed before you probably finish your sorrow blade, at least the swift shooter. So you'll have that one taking up that spot, so you likely won't. That's why I was thinking that I couldn't put together, but that's why you won't have the second spot for your weapon power. Go with that Lucky Strike, max out your monocle, and then from there, if it goes late enough game to where you're at that point, maybe a breaking point, maybe a tornado trigger, something like that, possibly a bone saw, but probably not, just depending on, again, it's all about counter building what they're doing. And that's what's working for me. Again, it's all about the team and the comps and all that. But when you get late game with either one of these builds based off the opposite team, you are going to be very, very scary. And if you're playing it right, you're going to be taking people out left and right. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, Jake, doing my best to help you guys suck less.